Hello, it's Devlin from Motorwork, and today we're going to be doing a walk around and buyer's guide of this 2014 Mercedes ML 350. This particular one has the 3.5 liter V6 gas engine, but we will talk about the V8s and the diesel options as well when walking around for the first time of a car you're looking at. We do still recommend that you get a pre-purchase inspection because that'll tell you more about the things like the brakes, suspension, tires, underside components that you won't be able to look at. This will give you a generalized idea of the general quality and features of this car or one you're going to want to pursue. So you'll want to walk around the outside and make sure things like all your parking sensors are in good shape because those can be quite expensive to fix. You'll want to make sure that the air suspension raises and lowers. I've overlaid a video here. You can see it going through its full range of motion. Those are some of the more expensive components that you can test when you first look at it to make sure you're even interested. You'll want to bring someone with you when you're doing the walk around to make sure that all of the headlights, the features on the exterior work, make sure everything that you would want to use on a day-to-day basis is functioning. Repairs on these cars, while limited, we haven't had that many problems with this one or our other ML or many of the customer cars that come through. These are solid generation Mercedes. You still want to make sure that all the electronic features work so that way you don't have to repair them in the meantime. One of the things I like to check is over here on the side of the car, and it's this little cover here for the tow hook. The only reason that would ever come off is if the vehicle had to be towed or pulled onto something, and that means either the battery was dead or it had a failure of some kind that required it to be towed. And the tow truck driver or the shop didn't remember to put that panel back on. That's very, very, very seldom that they ever fall off. So that means if they say it's never had an issue and it's never broken down and that panel is missing, it's quite likely that the car has been towed at some point and it's been winched onto a truck. Of course, there's the general list of things you want to make sure. I mean, for dings, dents, body scratches, curb rash on the wheels, you want to make sure that all the tires are the same brand. That shows that they actually cared and they didn't just make it fixed before you came to look at it. You want to make sure that the wear is even on them, so the tread on the inside of the tire should be the same depth as the tread on the outside of the tire, and that should be on all four corners. The rear suspension can sag in these, causing the inside tires to wear, so when you're looking at it from the back, you want to make sure that the tires are even on all four corners. Little things to look out for that just shows whether or not it's been maintained, aligned, and taken to a general level of care that would make sure it's safe for you to continue using. Under the hood, you want to look for any plastic pieces missing, any components broken. You want to see for any leaks or cracked belts on the front of the engine, just general condition of the car. If it is cold, you can pull the reservoir cap off the cooling system to make sure that it's not milky as though a head gasket is gone. That is not a common issue with these cars, so it's not something I would say you need to do if you can tell from the side that it's not milky, but you can check it for peace of mind. You just want to make sure you don't do it when it's warm. If it's already warm, you don't want to open a pressurized cooling system, so you'll leave that be if the car's already been running and is at the operating temperature, because then it poses a safety hazard to pull that out. Back here is the transmission dipstick. It's just tucked down here. You want to pull that out, make sure the transmission fluid looks clean. This is done with the engine on and in park, and that's when you check it when it's fully up to operating temperature. You want to make sure that it runs smooth. There's going to be a little bit of ticking. These modern fuel injection systems make a little bit of noise. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with this engine. It just has a little ticking noise. That's probably from its fuel injectors. It's a healthy sounding engine. There's no shakes or vibrations. You can't hear any metallic clattering, which is something that happens sometimes on the timing chains on these. One thing we have run into a couple of times is the bearings going on the number 6 cylinder. So you will listen for more of a low metallic thud. And that happens between the rev ranges, but it's very uncommon to hear. You would hear something louder than this. It would be quite noticeable if the engine has an issue like that. Now that we've got it running, let's go for a drive and check out a couple of other items. So you've walked around the car, you like what you see, now you want to go for a drive. Well, what are you looking for? You want to check a couple different things. You want to make sure you get the car up to operating temperature and that it stays at a regular temperature. If it gets too hot and overheats, it's unlikely, but it is something you want to know. Couple other things is you want to test every electronic feature in this car. We really haven't had that many problems with these two MLs. We have this one and another one as courtesy vehicles, and then we have customer cars coming through. We rarely have problems with any of them, but it is something to be wary about just in case there are problems that you won't be on the hook for fixing because they do carry a Mercedes repair price. You want to take the suspension, you want to raise and lower it and make sure you can feel it from inside. You want to put it between sport and comfort mode, and you should feel it get quite a bit firmer. You should feel much more expansions in the road than you would if it was in comfort mode. You want to test every single steering control, every single parking and safety assist. You want to make sure you turn those on. And the biggest thing you're looking for is perimeter sensor warnings. If it thinks that it's come too close to a pole when it hasn't, if you think that there's some sort of warning light, there's the sensors in the car that tell you how close you are to things. If those are telling you false signals, that is our most common problem we ever see with these Mercedes, and it's also an expensive fix. So you want to make sure you test out all the electronic features and be very careful to make sure there are no parking sensor problems, because it's a common issue for what issues they have. And of course, if you're driving it, you want to check out the massaging seats because you're being thorough. as to whether or not they work. The engines that you can get in these have a couple of different problems. I mean, on the V6s, they have a timing chain issue. Sometimes the timing chains will start to rattle. That is something you notice about 100,000 miles or more. Where you're listening for like a metallic sound when it's idling or driving, it will kind of come and go throughout the rev range as well. It's something you have to listen for, but if it doesn't just sound like every other car you've ever driven and makes a kind of clattering noise, then it's something to be concerned about, and you might have to look into it. It's possible that it will also have a timing code. If you see any kind of timing codes, possibly timing chains, and I would look into it further. The diesels, they're pretty reliable if they're non-emission systems, the pre-06 systems. Even then, they have a couple of issues with number 6 cylinders cooking themselves, basically. It's if you hear it running off, if you hear some sort of knock, if it doesn't run very smoothly once it's warm, because diesels when they're cold have some rough idle issues, but when they're warm, if you have any kind of running issues, also something I would have go check at the dealership or a pre-purchase inspection, as the diesels are known to sometimes have issues with their number 6 cylinders. On both of the 4.7 liter or the 5.5 liter V8s, you'll want to listen for a startup rattling noise coming from the timing chains. This is possible oil starvation from an improperly fitted or lack of a check valve. This problem is most common on pre-2012-2013 engines because Mercedes revised the design for later engines. The repair for this is to get a new check valve fitted. It's not terribly expensive, but it's something to listen for. Check for long cranks, timing warning lights, and a rattle on startup. All of the gas turbocharged engines are prone to having spark plug replacements about every 40,000 miles. This is just due to the fact that they're high performance turbocharged engines. So if you don't see spark plug replacements in their service history, it's something you might have to budget down the road. On the 4.7 liter V8 and V6 engines, there are reports of the camshaft position sensor and camshaft magnets leaking onto the wiring harness. This can cause other problems down the road, so it's recommended to get the engines inspected for these leaks. All of these engines are direct injection. They are known to have carbon buildup on the intake valves. It's not terribly common, but it happens sometimes, so it is recommended to have that budgeted into your service history at some point if the engine has about 80,000 miles or more. On some of the early 4.7 liter V8s, there are issues of the valve guide wearing out prematurely. Rough running, misfires, and poor fuel economy can be signs of this. This only affects early production engines, but if it does happen, it can be an expensive repair requiring a near engine rebuild with a cylinder head replacement. The 5.5 liter V8 engines can be known to have timing cover leaks. It's a simple enough repair, but it does still have to be done if it is leaking. Because of the direct injection of the gas engines, they can also have high pressure fuel pump problems. Issues can be long cranks, reduced power, and rough idle. This isn't a very common issue as the pumps are quite robust, and replacement pumps are reasonably priced as well. It's a simple repair, easily accessible on the top of the engine. All of the engines share the same transmission. It's a very reliable unit. You just want to make sure it shifts smoothly. Play with the manual mode a little bit to make sure it listens to your commands. If you put it into manual mode, downshift once, and that'll put it into manual mode. If you want to put it back into automatic mode, just hit the up paddle until it goes back into D without a number beside it, then it's in automatic again. Make sure the brakes aren't warped. These are heavier SUVs, so sometimes they can get heated up. So when you're braking, make sure there's no pulsation that you can feel between the pedal or the car itself. Something like the timing chain issues on these V6s happens at higher RPM when you can actually hear it, so do make sure that you roll into it once or twice to make sure that it cleanly revs throughout the entire rev range. Overall, when driving these cars, there's not that much to look out for specifically. They are quite reliable units. I mean, collectively between the 5 Mercedes courtesy cars we have, I think we've owned them for 20 some odd years, and they have had little to no issues outside of regular maintenance. They are solid units, and we don't see customer cars coming back in again and again for the same kind of problems. We just see them coming in for older vehicle parts wearing out, like you would see with a reliable company. There's not that much that you should be worried about. If it drives well, has no check engine lights, and has a good service history, we still recommend getting a pre-purchase inspection, but these are solid cars. That being said, I do still want to put this on the hoist and showcase some of the problem areas these do have on the underside. It's not too many, and it's really quite an easy way to look underneath it. And this is almost tall enough that you could just get on the ground and see it when you're looking at the car. So we'll go quickly put it on the hoist and we'll go from there. So we threw the vehicle up on the hoist. You wouldn't have one when you're looking at this. So what I did is I put the vehicle in off-road mode, which gives you the highest amount of ground clearance to see what you want to see. Underneath, you're looking at the tires to see if there's any uneven wear patterns. This one's pretty good, but you're looking to see if the tread is the same from the inside to the outside. On top of that, it's hard to see too much under here. The subframe is all aluminum, so you're good with that. But you're trying to see if the boots for the CV axles or any of the drive boots have torn. A common issue on these Mercedes automatics is transmission plug leaks. It's where the electronic plug goes into the transmission. You would notice it around here by the driver's door. and you see it on the transmission skid plate, a pooling of any fluid or any residue coming out. It's likely a transmission oil pan gasket or the transmission electrical plug leak. In the wheel wells, you'll be able to see the airbags, and what you're looking for is any cracking, listening for any hissing sounds. This would be where the leaks would be coming from. You can see the front wheel wells where the airbag is just up here. In the rear wheel wells, there's a cover so you can't see it as well. We'll go back there and we'll show you where you might be able to look, but it's a lot harder to see the back. It's only in the front wheels when it's in this off-road height. You can see the condition of the airbag, shine a light on them, look for any cracking or dry rotting. Let's go to the back. So under the back here, this is a lot more space than you would have when you're first looking at it, but what you're looking at is the rear wheels, same thing, they're not wearing unevenly. And then in there is the airbag, same thing. If you can get a light on it, check to see if there's any cracking or dry rotting or any noises you can hear. If the air suspension, if you leave the car alone for about an hour and a half, and any one corner changes direction, it's usually a sign that one bag is leaking. But other than that, you're just doing a general visualization to make sure there's no issues that you can see. And this view is afforded to you, as I said, once the vehicle's in off-road mode. All right, we've looked at the car, we've driven the car, and we've checked out all the features of the car. If it's something that you think is going to work for you, then we still recommend getting a pre-purchase inspection because it does tell you a further in-depth bit of information than you would get yourself. But it is a good starting point to see if it's a car worth starting on. We do offer pre-purchase inspections if you are looking at getting a vehicle in the Kelowna area, or we just generally recommend going to your local shop to get your vehicle looked at. We hope this helps you with your ML purchase, and have a great day.